Hey folks, everything new under the sun. You've heard me mention it several times that an economic collapse is part and parcel of the end time events that are occurring, the end time wars that are occurring. We are very, very close, I believe, to it in relation to the 6,000 year history of man. We are days, weeks, months out from some of these big events happening. The pot is boiling over. The earth is groaning. The end time events are increasing in frequency and intensity. This is a Zero Hedge article, and George Soros is now warning that a major financial crisis is coming. And things are melting down in Europe. Everything has gone wrong, Soros warns. Major financial crisis is coming. In a speech he delivered Tuesday in Paris, billionaire investor George Soros warned that the world could be on the brink of another devastating financial crisis. And Europe, with Italy dragging worries about the possible dissolution of the euro back to the forefront, won't be far behind. Europe won't be far behind the economic collapse of the Greeces and the Italys. Political pressure like the dissolution of its transatlantic alliance with the U.S. will eventually translate into economic harm. Presently, Europe is facing three pressing problems: the refugee crisis, the austerity policy that has hindered Europe's economic development, and territorial disintegration. Not only Brexit, but the threat that countries like Italy might follow suit. Brexit is an immensely damaging process, harmful to both sides. That's tearing down the European Union effectively. And if the European Union falls, there's going to be a massive economic shock to the world system, potentially triggering economic collapse. Why? Because there is so much debt out there that the market has to correct itself, and the market will eventually correct itself. The free market will eventually right itself, and righting itself means a complete and total economic collapse. It goes on, but in the near term, the U.S. decision to pull out of the Iran deal is straining Europe's alliance with its most important Western partner, just as strengthening dollar is constricting financial conditions around the world. Until recently, it could have been argued that austerity is working. The European economy is slowly improving, and Europe must simply persevere. But looking ahead, Europe now faces the collapse of Iran deal and the destruction of the transatlantic alliance, which is bound to have a negative effect on the economy. The strength of the dollar is already precipitating a flight from emerging markets. We may be heading for another major financial crisis. You pretty much have every person in the know, everybody who has money and who knows the markets. They have all been warning. I mean, there should have been a crash in 2008, but they printed money out of thin air. They printed money. They started up their printers, quite literally. They started up the money printers and printed a bunch of money out of thin air. Money that there was no backing for, money that there was no asset backing it up. And that's why the U.S. debt is over $20 trillion right now. That's not sustainable. The confidence of the world is waning here, and Soros is warning that a major economic collapse effectively is coming. Once the real one is triggered, it's going to go down hard. Soros' warning comes as Italian 2-year bonds shoot higher by the most on record. Look at this shooting up of the 2-year bond yields. Incredible, the interest rate there. Adding to the urgency, it is no longer a figure of speech to claim that the EU is in existential danger. That means that it's danger to exist. It may not exist much longer if things go badly here. The EU is in an existential crisis. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, Soros said. So I don't know what's sustaining the economy right now, but every bad thing that could happen is happening. And any one of these things could be a trigger for economic collapse. To escape the crisis, it needs to reinvent itself. The United States, for its part, has exacerbated the EU's problems by unilaterally withdrawing from the 2015 nuclear deal. So Soros says that this nuclear deal is going to have a big effect on the economy. It is no longer a figure of speech to say that Europe is in existential danger. It is the harsh reality. We may be heading for another major financial crisis, Soros said, explicitly because of the territorial disintegration of the European Union, etc. You have the Eurozone taken out of the picture, and that is a huge amount of the economy that would go down. But since the financial crisis of 2008, the EU seems to have lost its way. It adopted a program of fiscal retrenchment, which led to the euro crisis and transformed the Eurozone into a relationship between creditors and debtors. The creditors set the conditions that the debtors had to meet, yet could not meet. This created a relationship that was neither voluntary nor equal, the very opposite of the credo on which the EU was based. So, when you have people like Soros coming out, who is pushing for a new world order, a one world government, a gathering of nations to come together, he is warning about a major financial crash and crisis. And basically all people in the know, all the people who have money, know that this is inevitable, this is coming down the pipe. And like I say, now you have Soros warning of this. And this is coming. This is coming very soon. We need to be prepared. God gave us a brain. He gave us wisdom. We need to be like Joseph in the Bible in Egypt, who for 7 good years helped Egypt store up food, so that when the 7 bad years came, as prophesied, as dreams were given to Joseph in the Bible, he got ready for the 7 bad years by storing up in the 7 good years. I believe we're at the end of the 7 good years, and we're getting ready for a bad time to come. Maybe that the 7 bad years are exactly the 7-year tribulation, where things are really bad. A measure of wheat for a penny. And hard times, persecution coming, mark of the beast, where you can't buy or sell. That means if you can't buy or sell, you need to already have food stored up, so that when they initiate or remove the ability to buy and sell from people who don't want to worship the beast via this mark of the beast system, that you have a little bit of food already stored up to go on, because you can't buy or sell it anymore. These are important things to think about. God gave us a brain to be prepared. He gave us stories, examples in the Bible of these sorts of things happening in the past. Interestingly, the Joseph story in Egypt was 7 good years and 7 bad years. Again, that directly coincides with the 7-year tribulation. You need to be prepared. We're in the very last days of, I believe, the 7 good years. Be prepared. Store up food, store up water, and make sure your heart is prepared for the return of the Lord. And prior to the return of the Lord, I believe we're going to see a lot of persecution. Christians need to be ready for this stuff. It's coming down the pipe. And make sure you have enough food as well for your neighbors, because they're going to be asking questions, and they're going to be hit at the same time when the world economy collapses, and when all the Western nations collapse, and we can't support Israel in the last days in the Gog-Magog battle. We're going to be starving. We're going to be fighting for our food ourselves, and that's why the U.S., that's why Canada, that's why Western nations don't go to the support of Israel in the last days. All these things happen at the same time. It's going to come down hugely fast, and it's going to come down heavy. There's going to be all sorts of Bible prophecy being fulfilled all at once, I believe. And so pretty significant days that we live in, guys. Are you prepared? Do you know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Soros believes an economic collapse is coming.